Thank you, Demola. So Demola provided some context around what it entails to start a new L&D position, right? And over the course of the next 45 minutes, what I'll try to do is actually just run through, and I know that quite a number of people on this call as well have certain ideas or certain things that, certain experiences that might be beneficial to this session. So at the end of this session, one thing that or three things actually that we expect to get out of this next 1 hour that we're going to be learning together is for every single person in the session to get a critical understanding, right, to the critical role of L&D, a deep comparison from what L&D used to be and what it is right now. We would also be discussing in detail key things that you can pay attention to in the first 100 days in office. And finally, we're going to be identifying some challenges that you will, let me say you may, because I'm so certain that with the changing narrative comes changing perspectives and changing challenges. But more importantly is, how are we able to firstly identify these challenges? And secondly, how are we able to navigate them? All right, so let's start with this activity. So I'm going to need everyone's active participation. Okay, so I'm going to just give a minute or so for all of us to read the activity on the screen, right? So I'm just going to give a minute or so for us to read it. And as you read it, I want us to just take note of certain things. And once you're done reading, just put in the comments and type done, and then I will proceed. Okay, so I'm just going to give a minute for us to read, and then we'll proceed as soon as I have some comments in the chat box, and then we'll proceed. So I'll be looking out for your comments in the chat box. All right, just a few more minutes, and then we move on. Once you're done, just go right into the comment box and type done, just so that I know that you've spent some time to read what's on the screen. Okay, great. Perfect. All right, so I see a few comments. So at this point, I'm just going to, just call anyone randomly and just, share with everyone what your understanding of this, of what you can see on your screen right now, what your general understanding is of it, and how you think it applies to you as a learning and development professional. So like I said, I'm just going to call anyone randomly from those that have indicated done in the chat box. So Damilola Lawal, if you please could come off mute and just tell us, what did you get from reading this? Are you there?
Hi, good morning.
Hi, morning, Damilola.
Yes. So I just feel like the captain of the ship is like the head of HR. That's what my understanding. And then the crew members are like HR team, and everyone seems to be trying to get the organization stable, and things are happening, and everyone is trying to give ideas to stabilize the organization. So for me, I'm starting my definitely I'm probably like maybe the like smallest link in the team. That's what I think. I'm not sure if I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
The smallest link in the team, and probably people are not listening to
Right.
my ideas. And then I feel like these ideas would be better when things are more stable in the company. That's what I got from the write-up.
Okay. All right. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much, Damilola, for that valuable contribution. All right. I'll take just one more. Bolade Omobolade Adigun. So what stood out for you, or what came to mind as you read through this very quickly? Mobalade.
Thank you very much, Inka. Can everyone hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
All right, fantastic. So, from the little scenario on the screen, yeah, it's obvious that everything is in a chaotic situation. Both the captain and the crew members are trying frantically to steady the ship and to take it out of the to rowdy waters into calm and smoother waters. Of course, like the scenario rightly pointed out, you have the ideas to actually stabilize the ship, but then again, everywhere is chaotic at the time. So the first thing I think you need to do is to first of all look out to stabilize things, try to bring in the calm, probably organize discussion between the crew members and the captain and let them realize that working asynchronously or not working together as a team will not actually bring any solution to the problem. And that's the only time they can actually give here or give audience to the fantastic ideas. You have to help them stabilize the ship. So at that point, tackling the problem is not even the first thing to do. I think the first thing to do is actually bring everybody on board to have a collective buying into looking at the problem holistically. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Right, brilliant. I mean, thank you so much, Damilola and Omobolade. I think you rightly provided the context to the activity on the screen. So really, again, really brilliant contribution. I think the only thing I would add to this, all right, just same thing with what Bolade and Damilola just rightly said. So we can imagine, right, the organization that we currently are in, either as a new L&D professional or as an intending L&D professional. We can liken the organization to be a ship. All right. A lot of times, L&D professionals think that they are actually the captain of the ship. The truth is, albeit we have recommendations and we have ideas, but it's imperative to note that a critical role as L&D professionals, and I mean, a good place to also start is the defining of what our role is, right? So as L&D professionals, we stand as navigators, okay? While you may find that the CEO or the executives or the directors are responsible for directing the course of the organization, they are responsible for directing, all right? Our role as L&D professionals should be to advise. And I mean, if we have some time, I will give some very practical examples from some of the organizations that I've worked in, is to advise the captain, okay? Advise the captain in line with the data, okay? The data that you, in the first few days of resumption, have been able to gather, all right? That you've been able to gather, as against just getting in and rolling up changes. So with this, we see that many L&D officers actually get started with the wrong narrative. So again, I'm going to throw another question out to the group. What common mistakes, just in line with the exercise we just concluded, what common mistakes do you think that you have either made, right, with this context that we've been able to set? What common mistakes do you think that you've either made, either in a new role or even in a previous role? What common mistakes have you made in the past? So again, you feel free to raise your hand, or I guess I'll just, because of time, I'm probably just going to call up people. So Adebayo Afolayan, so tell us, what are some of the common mistakes that you've made regarding your L&D position, either in a previous role or in a current role? Adebayo? All right, if Adebayo isn't available, I guess anyone can just come off mute and just share. We're actually going somewhere with this. So if Adebayo isn't there, can
can I go ahead and say something?
Yes, absolutely. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so for me, I feel some of the first mistakes I have made as an L&D officer with respect to this scenario that we just looked at was probably to even join the crew and frantically searching and looking for ways to stabilize the ship, whereas that is actually not priority at that time. Because, you know, I really don't want to put it that the crew members are actually wrong. They are not wrong, and neither is the crew captain, is the ship captain. But I think the only challenge they have is that they are not prioritizing the challenges, you know. I think the first thing to do is to actually bring everybody together first. And this can be related to having everybody's buy-in at that point. That, okay, everybody, this is what we want to do at that time. So for me, I feel some of the mistakes I've made in the past is to just, you know, be in isolation and trying practically to see how I can actually
and just dive right in.
And just dive right in. Exactly.
Right. Okay.
So that's that for
Brilliant.
me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Omobolade. Okay, I see a few comments in the chat box, so I will just go right into the chat box and take a few comments. So Monique Sola says, being theoretical and not localized interventions, beautiful. Jumping right into the role without audits. This very critical. Thank you so much, Monique Sola, for that. Okay, Adebayo says it's muted. Oh, sorry about that, Adebayo. So Oyegeke says not taking time to understand the culture. Thank you so much, Oyegeke, for that. Brilliant. Okay. Adebo says lack of skill gap analysis. Okay. All right. I mean, everyone has rightly said, I mean, been able to identify, right, what these challenges are. I think I love the fact that for many of us, all of these concepts are not new. Okay. So moving on and diving further in, we're going to be looking at the critical role of L&D. All right. As we all know, the primary responsibility of L&D is to provide continuous learning, continuous growth that is essential for the growth of the organization. Right. However, it's also very imperative to have a striking comparison between the old and the new reality. Okay. So like one of the, I think it was Omobalade that said about how L&D professionals literally just dive right in and try to just solve problems immediately in their first month. It's essential that we firstly get a great understanding of the new reality. And as you would agree with me, that the new reality isn't anything close to what it used to be. As a matter of fact, everything that you can see on your screen right now, right, is the complete opposite of the past reality. So you would find that, I mean, before the pandemic, and thankfully, the pandemic, albeit destructive in a sense, sort of like helped to navigate new paths, especially for us as professionals. You would see that in the new reality, knowledge in this new reality has a shorter shelf life, all right? And what I mean by that is the timing between when you're able to learn a new concept and to the timing when it becomes obsolete, right? It becomes shorter. So for example, if you're getting on a new role and you've done the analysis, you've done the stakeholder management and all the things that we're going to be talking about today, you would find that it isn't something that you do and then you stop, right? And then you leave rather. You find that the changing, the VUCA, a lot of professionals love to call it, has brought to us quite a number of changes. We also see that the global workforce, has evolved. I mean, I was in a session a few days ago, and we heard how business owners were actually just raising up their voice around managing the multi-generational workforce. For some of them, they just can't deal with the Generation Z, right? Just because of their narrative, their perspective to work, DC, and all of that. So it's essential that we as professionals, in rolling out interventions or in putting together training programs, we're mindful of this new reality. Also, we find rising complexity, the data revolution, persistent uncertainty, all of this for us to be successful, right, as new L&D professionals are things that we need to bring to our front view, as against Buka. Yes, thank you, Demola, for that. As against the existing narrative that we have. Therefore, what hats should L&D professionals wear All right, I'll try to move quickly now because I know that we don't have a lot of time. What hat should L&D professionals wear? So as a L&D professional, it's essential to note that you actually wear a lot of hats, and that's the truth, right? Gone are the days where professionals think that you just come, you train, and you go. No. One of the narratives that L&D professionals need to have, especially in this new era, is that of a business analyst, that of the performance analyst, that of the cost analyst, that of the internal and external consultant, and solution providers. So I would speak, I know that for many of us, we already sort of like get a sense of what a business analyst is, but it's simply just getting a deep dive into the business or the organization that you find yourself. So before you go right in and get theoretical, what exactly is the business environment that I find myself? What are the things that are important to the stakeholders? And we're going to dive a bit deeper when we go into the actionable steps that you can take. What are the things that are important to business owners? What is the corporate strategy? What is the goal? What exactly is the business trying to achieve in terms of performance? So in respect to the desired future state, right? What is the current state of an organization? What are the competencies? What are the gaps that will be required to get us to the desired future state? How are employees performing, right, in respect to the desired future state? The cost analyst, I usually like the concept of the 5 why concept, right? The 5 why speaks to you getting to the root cause of a matter. So for instance, a line manager could walk up to you and tell you, oh, L&D, my sales team, they're not meeting target. Please come and organize training for me, all right? And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about today. How L&Ds can move from order takers. They just come to you, come give us training, and then you take the order and then you deliver. No, right? You want to begin to ask the right questions, right? So what exactly is responsible for the challenges that you're having with your sales team? And I'm going to give you some examples of some questions that you can ask, in the time when you're having this interaction, because no longer are we going to just put a bandage, that bandage effect where you just put a bandage over a wound and you're like, oh, I've done my bit and I've gone. But you're able to ask the right questions so that you're able to solve the right problems. Internal and external consultants. So I particularly love this because as internal consultants, one of the key roles that we play is being able to navigate with every unit in the organization. All right. So it's again, it speaks to our ability to, I'm going to speak about that as well when we talk about stakeholder management, stakeholder relationship. How are we able to get the heart of an internal consultant across the different levels of the organization, as well as the external consultant? So the external consultant means that besides solving the problems internally and identifying what the gaps are internally, you also want to get on the streets. I remember in an organization I worked with, I think last year, during my first 90 days, I remember that, this was part of my 90 days plan. And I remember then I did a lot of engagement. I went out, went to the market, I went to engage with the customers. So it was a FMCG sector. So I needed to understand what the customers were saying, all right? But that's the approach that L&Ds now need to take. So no longer would we just sit pretty in the office. Just sit pretty in the office, but actually, as consultants, be willing to go out, get an understanding of the problems, that may be leading to the business not achieving its results, and then come back to solve those problems. And finally, I think I talked about this already, being solution providers and not order takers. So it's very essential, because another thing I want to say here is that, especially for those that will be starting a L&D unit from the scratch, right? I've had roles where I had to start a L&D unit from the scratch. You want to be able, in the first 6 months, to see, to allow management to see the value that you bring to the table. And trust me, that's not something that is easy that is easy to attain. So you want to create that reputation, not for yourself as the L&D professional, but also for the units that you are creating. So they don't see you as a cost center, L&D. They always about trading, they cost money. When they want to cut budget, they cut L&D, right? So it's essential that you're able to do all of this and more. Okay, so very quickly, let's see some of the skills that you need as you will be beginning with this new role. Effective communication, I mean, that cannot be overemphasized, because as part of your role, communication is going to be one thing, ongoing communication, all right? It's going to be one thing that you're going to be doing across different levels. Creative thinking, so how do you take all of these problems? How do you take all of these challenges? How do you take all of the pain points, and how are you able to think through, something I think I would like to just add very quickly, and that is for a lot of L&D professionals, especially those that are coming in newly, it's important to note that as a professional, you have to be able to display certain personalities, right? So, and I say this because I feel like somebody might actually need to hear this. So there are certain times where extroversion may be required for you to perform your role. So for instance, how are you able to constantly engage? Some people will be like, oh, you know what, I'm not a talker, I'm an introvert, I don't know how to ask questions, I don't know how to strike communication, strike conversations, I don't know how to, I don't know. It's essential that as part of the beginning of this journey, you begin to pull up all of these skills and competencies. So how are you able to come out of your shell to strike corridor conversations? How are you able to, walk up to someone newly and ask them questions, all right? Interpersonal awareness, how are you able to use the concept of emotional intelligence to find the right place to strike a conversation, the right environment? How are you able to plan, all right, with all of the data that you've been able to get? How are you able to plan to ensure that you're not just, again, an order taker, but you're able to take all of the findings and put them into actionable plans? And finally, I'm sure that everyone knows this. And I mean, when we talked about the current trends, you recall that the digital revolution is now extremely essential for every L&D professional to have some skills around it. All right, so let's move on very quickly. Getting started in a new L&D position, the first 100 days. So what I've done is I've just broken this down into 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, and then 6 to 12 months. All right, what I'll try to do is to see how I can, again, practical, actionable steps, all right? Things that you can do in the first few months, as against just, dive right in and preferring solutions. So in the first 3 months as a new L&D professional, what you want to ensure, I think I said this already, is to get a deep understanding of the business strategy. So at this time, you want to schedule meetings with key stakeholders. You want to schedule meetings with line managers. You want to, and again, remember, your role here isn't just internal, right? Whilst you are doing all of this internally, it's also important that you also schedule some time to speak to external parties. So you want to speak with the customers, you want to deduct development needs, you want to ask for, I ask for feedback from employees. You want to ask around things that have been done in the organization in the past, right? You want to do L&D audits. What exactly is it that has happened in the past, okay? And in doing this, it's essential that you take note of 3 things. So I decided I was going to take the slide off, but I decided to put it back because it's actually very instrumental to your success in the first 100 days. 3 things: listen, learn, and observe. In the first 3 months, listen, learn, and observe, and then do that all over again. And I'm sure that you would agree that one of the again, remember the scenario we read in the beginning, right? About you having your ideas, you coming in as, very energetic, and, you've implemented all sorts of things across different industries. But it's essential that you actually sit down and listen. Listen to the problems of the managers, listen to the problems of the executives, listen to the things that keep them awake at night, listen to their goals, listen to their desired picture of the future, listen to the employees, listen to everyone, literally. And as we do that, it's essential that we're also learning. So one of the things that I also wanted to highlight that would mark your primary role in the first 3 months is your ability to learn and learn fast. I remember in one of the industries that I worked, which was more like a fintech, I needed to go right back to start doing like a lot of research around successful organizations that have done or achieved certain things that we were trying to achieve based on the things that I've been able to gather. Or listen, learn what is the best practice globally, what is the industry requirements to function effectively in this business, right? So it's important that you do a lot of learning. And in learning, you ask the right questions, different types of questions. I mean, we don't have time, or would have broken it down to see the kind of questions that you can really ask: open-ended questions, close-ended questions. The most important thing is that you're getting to the root cause, and of course you observe and you do that again. Also, in the 0 to 3 months, you want to, I talked about starting a conversation. So here are some examples. I'd mentioned that I was going to share some questions that you can ask. Either you're asking individuals, either you're asking stakeholders, either you're asking line managers. So you want to ask them because, again, you want the narrative, or you want their perception of your role to be that of a strategic one, okay? You want them to see you as a strategic business partner, as a navigator. Remember what we said earlier about L&D being a navigator, right? Preferring the right advice, preferring the right recommendation based on the data that you've been able to gather. So questions: what thing can I do to change that could make the biggest difference to your team? All right, either at an organizational level, either at a group level, or either at an individual level. Okay, you want to ask questions around the capacities, the competencies. Okay, and there are many frameworks that are available, and that can help provide some of the answers to this. All right, what are the skills that will be required for this role, for this organization in the next 3 to 5 years? Right, what is the current assessment? So that is, this analysis and these questions are very critical. Again, remember, I think the point to note here as we think about the first 0 to 3 months is that avoid the temptation of just going in and rushing in. No longer would we have that narrative. So you literally have to come back to that position where you are actually a strategic business partner and you're asking the right questions. Also, in the first 3 months, you want to build stakeholder relationships. And this, I would say that I learned the hard way. So again, I'll give an example. I was in an organization once that the captain of the organization, right, didn't think learning was essential, right? He didn't, at that point, didn't really see the value, to L&D. But before, at some point in the space of 0 to 6 months, or 0 to 6 or 9 months, we were able to, get an LMS system, all right, that cost millions of naira. Now, this was moving someone from a position where, he thought that learning wasn't important, to the point where it could actually put down, and when I say millions of naira, I mean millions of naira, not just, any amount of naira. What are the things that, was responsible to achieve this? Stakeholder relationship management, because as you would find, at some point, you would need stakeholder relationship, you need their support. So at some point, when we talk about the challenges that you would face, we're going to be speaking about certain challenges that you would face. You will see that getting management buy-in, I can tell you for a fact, in your first 3 months, getting that buy-in would be a lot of challenge. But what you will find is that management support is critical to success. I already said that. So in building management, in building stakeholder support, you want to understand, okay, what exactly is important to you? What exactly is your expectation of me on this role? All right. What exactly would you want me to achieve? Okay. How can I help you build the organization that you desire? All right. So it's essential that as we journey from getting in as a newbie to getting in as a strategic partner, that we're ensuring all of these things. Then in your first 3 months, you want to dig into data. This is very, very critical. I think someone, when we had asked the question initially, I talked about the importance of analysis. So before diving right in and creating any kind of plan, it's essential that you get all the data that you can get your hands on. Performance data, employee survey data, exit surveys, why are people leaving the organization? So L&D is not a small work. I'm telling you from experience, especially getting started. It's not a small work. It's a lot of critical thinking. So what kind of information do you want to? Because again, remember, the advice and the recommendation that you will give to management will be based off the data, objective data that you've been able to gather. So in the first 3 months, you want to ensure that you are you're able to get your hands on many information as possible. Why organizations leaving? And I think I'll share very quickly one of the reasons why the attrition rate is going really high. And I think there's a slide that speaks to that. But we find that in many organizations, many employees actually think that they are not getting the value in terms of capital capacity development that they need for their teams. But we'll come to that. So again, you want to dive right into data in the first 3 months, in addition to all the other things that I talked about, right? Now let's move on very quickly to the next 3 months. Again, what I'm trying to do here is actually just summarize and give like key points that you can easily keep the ground running with. Okay. So when you've done that, after the first 0 to 3 months, what next? What next should you do? Okay, so it's essential that you are able to translate all of the findings, all of the discussion points, all of the pinpoints, translate them into an action plan. I think we talked about one of the relevant skills that you would need as a L&D professional will be your ability to be able to plan. So you want to translate that into an action plan, all right? And there are different action plans different action plan templates that we can share, all right? I think we spoke about technology because in executing your plan, you would find that technology will come in very helpful to help you to deploy most of this plan. You also want to engage and build. So in the next 3 to 6 months, you want to begin to ask questions, and some of the questions around, okay, who do I need to address some of the needs that I've found? All right. All the needs that I've found, are they needs that training can address, or are they operational needs that I can, speak to the line manager about? Right? If they are training needs, you want to start to engage the right training partner, the right training providers, to ensure that they're able to address the needs. You want to speak to the right people. You also want to put in consideration budget. Okay, so has there been a budget for training in the past? Has there been a budget for training in the past? How much would you need? Would you need to get many of these interventions on the road? And also, what other options can you consider if, for example, you're in an organization where training just doesn't have a budget? What other options can you explore? And I think we're going to speak about that when we get to the challenges. And finally, reach out, content providers, etc. Okay, let's move on very quickly. So here we're going to be looking at things to consider in the next 6 to 12 months. Remember, what we're speaking on right now are the actionable steps that you can do, right, as you get in on this journey. So you want to verify all the analysis, the needs analysis that you have conducted over the last 6 months. You want to deliver on low-hanging fruits. This one is very essential. I mean, it's like the icing on the cake. And I'll tell you why shortly. You also want to think about the delivery format. So, okay, now that I've been able to identify this pain point and all of that, what are the best ways that I can deploy them? Also, it's important to note that whilst you want to hit the ground running, okay, it's important that you are very realistic. Okay. And one thing that I would say in explaining this is that don't come in and just overpromise. In the first 100 days, I will do this, I will do that. You know what those things that we say, L&D professionals doing it service, don't worry, we know that. I'll do this, I'll change your business around in 5 days, all those things. So it's essential that you're wary of overpromising and under-delivering, because again, remember, it's you're also beyond the perception that you're creating for yourself as a professional, is also the perception that you're creating for your units. Okay, so it's important that you are realistic. So, and that's where the action plan comes in. So realistically, what are the things that I know that I can deploy over the next few months, over the next few weeks, to ensure that I'm able to just gain the right reputation for my unit? Or what are the first few things that I'm able to get on to be able to get the buy-in of different stakeholders? And again, we can keep the conversation going. There are a number of things that you can do. Maybe later we can talk about that, but I don't really have a lot of time. So whilst you're realistic, it's also essential that you grab some quick wins. So these quick wins, I tell you, this one is very important. So, the quick win that would immediately make you immediately give you an important seat at the table. Okay, so the quick things should be things that you have seen, things that you have observed, either by your interaction with the line manager. So a quick win could be maybe a revamp of maybe the onboarding process, for example, scrapping a training program that has absolutely no value to the organization, or even something around a pain point that the executives have shared with you in your earlier conversation with them. So it's essential that in the first, and again, a lot of thinking has to go into this, and a lot of strategic planning, right, has to go into this. It's essential that in the first 6 months, you just don't spend the first 6 months analyzing, because at that point, they begin to wonder, please, why did we hire this person again, right? You want to be able to identify in the short time frame that you've spent in that organization, what can you do to move the needle, so they can see that this L&D person is very serious, So also, it's important that you look after yourself. This is some part that a lot of L&D professionals do not also focus on. So again, we are in very very demanding times. Like I said, there's a shorter shelf life for knowledge. The knowledge that you train, right, or a training program that you train in a month can become obsolete in the next month, and that places a lot of stress and pressure on L&D professionals. So it's important that you look after yourself. And how do you do that? You find an active community, right? I think Demola and I, there's a community, and I think a few others here of L&D professionals, where you can just easily bounce off ideas, ask questions, have a mentor, someone that you can speak to, get a community where you can sort of like draw ideas and inspiration from, because especially depending on the kind of sector that you would be in, okay, depending on the kind of sector that you be in, it's important that you surround yourself with the things that would help you deliver the job. So also go for certification programs, okay? Go for certification courses, look for something to learn. I think what I tell my team back at PenUp is you need to ask yourself the question every day: what is one thing that I'm learning differently today? What is one thing that I know today that I didn't know yesterday? Because that's what keeps you relevant. Okay, so it's essential that you look after yourself just in the middle of all of that. So in summary, the first 100 days should focus on observation, on brainstorming, effective communication, not sweeping changes and new strategies. Okay. All right. Now let's go very quickly to some of the challenges that you will encounter and how you can navigate them. Okay, so interestingly, I mean, when I was doing a bit of research around this, I stumbled on some findings from McKinsey and McLean and Company, and it was a bit disturbing. So, I mean, with everything that was said today, okay, I'm sure you would agree with me that L&D plays a critical role to the success of an organization. But I think what is more disturbing is that research shows that L&D is falling short with expectations. So expectations of management, expectations of different stakeholders in an organization. As a matter of fact, a study by McKinsey says that 60% of executives, right, they anticipate that half of their employees at the organization will require training or retraining over the next 5 years. Okay, but what disturbs me the most is about the decline in the belief that leaders and business owners are having in L&D professionals. And if you can see from the screen, you can see that the level of belief and trust is actually declining. As at 2021, that number fell down to 42%. All right. So what the question is, why don't they trust L&D anymore? Why don't they see us as a strategic partner? Why don't they see us as being effective to help move the organization forward? The other, challenge, and I think I talked about this earlier, is that 39% of employees cited in a survey by McLean says that one of the reasons why they leave organizations, right, is because, in simple terms, L&D is not doing their job, okay? Because they believe they don't have the right skills, they don't have the right related competencies to deliver the role that has been assigned to them. And this is a major challenge that a lot of L&D professionals, need to be aware of. Okay, but in addition to that, and I think it was Damilola that mentioned initially, there are many, many, many challenges. But for the sake of time, I'll just speak to these, and then we'll go to possible ways of solving these challenges. One of the greatest challenges you will encounter as you start this new L&D role is gaining executive buy-in. It is even worse when you're in an organization where the management or the business leaders don't see learning as essential. So again, I'm going to speak to how to navigate them. High training costs. For many of us, we know that training budget is the first they cut. Once there's just some issue with the organization, the first thing they come to us is training. You also find a challenge around different learners. We talked about the multi-generational workforce that the new reality now has. So as L&D professionals, you see, having to train different generation of learners. Okay. You also find that one of the challenges that you would experience is how to drive motivation and engagement amongst learners, because again, learners have different priorities. So how are you able to drive them to learn? Then also, one final challenge that, because of time, I'll speak about today is how the notion of L&D, and I mean the last slide that I just spoke about, just speaks around the current notion of L&D and how that we're perceived as order takers. So it's essential that in navigating these challenges, and again, this speaks to your first 100 days, okay? The deeper strategies that you can adopt as you move. But in the first 100 days, I cannot overemphasize this. You need to build stakeholder relationships. Very essential. And it's across the different levels of the organization. Very, very critical. And I think I already talked about the different strategies that you can use to do that. So either you're striking conversations, whether you're organizing meetings, either you're just showing the different stakeholders that you actually care about what their pain points are, and you're looking towards to solve them. Very critical. In terms of the cost, you also want to leverage alternative learning methods as against having an in-class or maybe the LMS or the heavy budget initiatives. So you want to leverage internal subject matter experts. You want to leverage other training methods. There's a slide, maybe I'll share at the end of this session, in addition to the slide that I will share, a template that has like 66 learning methods that, as L&D professionals, we can actually use, okay, in our first 100 days, something that can help you get some quick wins, because chances are that you might not be able to get the budget that you need in the first 3 months, possible, but over time you'll be able to. So for the next challenge, which is number 3, different learner style and different learning needs. So it's essential that you conduct a thorough needs analysis. Okay, I like the definition of my mentors. Say that L&D professionals should act like doctors, as against just acting like as I can't remember the other word it says now. But as doctors, you would hardly find doctors preferring a solution without a proper diagnosis. Okay, so it's essential that you conduct that thorough analysis to get a clear understanding of what the problems are. Okay, never go on deploying training programs without doing a need analysis. So you can do that through a survey, you can do that through a one-on-one engagement, one-on-one interactions, corridor conversations, even informally. Okay, and again, remember, you're doing that both as an internal and as an external stakeholders. Then also, you also want to incentivize learners. All right, this to drive learner motivation and engagement. So you know how that many people like the fact that when they're able to cover some milestones, they get recognition, they get awarded, they get a badge. So you have to think about your action plan. Okay, what ways can I use to get less engagement? Okay, and finally, moving from being perceived as an order taker to solution provider, you want to reposition yourself as an internal consultant. I mean, if there's anything I would want to stick, this would be one of them. That narrative of being order takers should totally be shattered. All right. Internal consultants are able to identify and solve problems and prefer solutions and help move the organization forward. So as we close, I think I've tried to summarize a number of things, but just a few thoughts as we close. In getting started in a new L&D role, I think one of the things that we talked about is getting a deep understanding of your business, right? Of the business that you find yourself in. So, like we know, strategy is king. All right. So everything starts and ends with strategy. So the closer you get to what the business does, the closer you are able to become more consultative as against being an order taker. All right. You also want to identify passionate people in the organization and develop them for many reasons. Okay. Many reasons. You want to build self-plan. You can also start small. I also talked about you incentivizing people in your organization, and more importantly, prove that you can deliver value in the first 100 days. Okay, on that note, I would like to say thank you so much, everyone. And at this point, I'll take questions, comments, feedback, or any additional thoughts that we might have. Thank you.